2024, $17.56, reduction in $85. Industrial properties, an increase in 11. So pretty low change, I guess, so to speak, for commercial and industrial, whereas it's a pretty noticeable shift for residential. In typical in years past, I know we talked about trying to have less of a burden, I guess, on commercial and industrial whenever possible, just to keep it consistent in previous years. So I haven't answered any questions that I can answer in my capacity. Some of these things I can certainly pass to the town assessor. But generally speaking, does anyone have any kind of questions, concerns? Has anyone reviewed that document I sent out already?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
No, and I looked at it.
Yeah. The shift stays the same. Obviously, appraised values are up on both sides.
Yeah.
I think the other side for me would be that, they're going to raise $92 million one way or the other in order to meet the budget. And if I look at the increase on the residential side is, 70% or even closer to 80% is an override that the town voted for the middle school. So I don't think there's any surprises in here, and I think it was as fair as it's been, in say the previous years running.
Yeah, I mean that override. I think it counted.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh yeah, no, I just kind of following up on Kevin. I mean the override for the middle school, I think it counted for about. I guess if you're thinking of average for single family, it was like 368 out of that 531 was
right. So that's
the override.
75% or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. So the override is included in that 500 and change increase.
Yeah, that's
correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have a quick question. It seems like we've been at that. What is it, 1.275 or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
Number for as long as I can remember. I might be remembering wrong, but I guess my question is why? Where did they come up with that number, and why is it just a carryover? Is it to lull people to sleep in terms of what's going on? Oh, it worked before, it'll work again. Or is that pretty commensurate with what other towns are doing that are similar to Walpole? I mean, I don't have a basis for what that number is or what it even means in terms of the relationship to what it could or should be.
No, that's an excellent point. I mean, I'm not familiar in terms of how towns separate in terms of the shift. That would definitely be a question for the Board of Assessors and the town assessor. From previous conversations of past years, talking to the town assessor, I think that number is just kind of where the happy medium is in terms of like trying to find a percentage that works for both a residential side and commercial side, and that's kind of where that number has stayed for at least the entire time I've been here, and I think for much longer than that as well. But that's a good question. I mean, that's definitely a question for the Board of Assessors.
Well, when the selectmen have their public meeting tonight, correct, about this?
Correct.
I'm assuming that, maybe I shouldn't assume, but it seems like if they were going to get some public involvement, that it would be in an effort to try to lower the residential burden, correct? I can't see a lot of businesses showing up to argue this point because they really are not overly affected. So let's say half the people, and it's not going to happen obviously, but let's say a lot of people show up and say no chance, then what? Is it subject to change and then we're going to be talking about it again, or is this pretty much it no matter what happens?
Yeah, I mean, it really, I guess it comes down to the Board of Selectmen if they feel, obviously we can't answer for them or speculate, but if it does have a lot of opposition or they're questioning, they could certainly continue the meeting and have a further dialogue with the Board of Assessors But that's, I couldn't answer for them or how they.
Yeah. No, I'm not trying to
No,
get what their viewpoint is. I'm just talking about a what if.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, it just seems weird that the number has always been there, and I don't want to belabor this point at all because I know we all have things to do. But whenever I see something just continue to pass through, rubber stamp, it always makes me wonder what's going on. But if that's the way it's done and the way it's accepted and doesn't raise any flags, maybe that's the point. I don't know.
I mean,
it's good for the commercial side, so we're not going to have an argue with it. But I'm just curious in general of how they come up with that.
I could certainly note that in the letter. I mean, it's not anything opposed or against, but in conversation at the meeting tonight, the EDC just wanted additional clarity on why the percentage shift has been 1.275.
Has stayed steady at 1.275.
Yeah,
Right.
and maybe they can address that if they bring the letter up during the meeting. They can address that with the town assessor, and that can be something that he can provide an explanation on.
Yeah, and then I'm going to see a bunch of black coats walking up to my house at 1:30 in the morning tonight. But I mean, I don't want to speak for the whole group here, but I wouldn't mind finding out at least what the thought process is behind that. But other than that, does anyone have any input on what's happening, and should we just make it something that we support or recommend, or don't have a problem with it, however Patrick wants to word it, or does somebody else have some input that's different than that?
If I can, Danelle here. Can you guys hear
Hey,
me?
Danelle.
Yep.
Yeah, we sure can.
Okay. In the past, I've gone to those meetings with the selectmen. Unfortunately, I'm away, and every single year that I've gone there, probably 5 or 6 or 7 times, that I request that it remains the same as a business and property owner in town. Only because I'm not really sure where that shift came from, but they did institute it, and they instituted it in terms of other towns were doing it, but they also didn't take into effect what other towns are doing it, like Norwood and Dedham and Canton. Those all have a much larger commercial base, commercial base than Walpole does,
Sure.
So in order for them to increase that shift to put more onto the businesses, it discourages more businesses from coming into town. And Walpole is not in the same boat as all those other towns. Walpole really kind of does need the commercial base. And in order to do that, the tax rate increase is a negative, not a positive to accomplish that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think, if anything, we should be saying to the board that we'd want it to remain the same and not increase.
Yeah, at a minimum, remain the same.
Yeah. Yes, just in case they have those people that speak there at those meetings. I mean, the meetings I've gone to, I don't want to say a large crowd get up and speak, but there are like 1 or 2 individuals, and it mostly is 1 or 2 commercial or business owners that do speak up against it, and that's probably the way it's been for the last bunch of years.
Right, and I'm reading real quickly.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Mark, sorry. I'm Googling here while you're talking, and one thing I'm reading is communities may be limited to the maximum shift. So I don't know if this is something that was voted on a while ago either. And then is the maximum shift 1.275? So it's just a generic question. I'm like Danelle was. It's stayed the same. It's not broken per se. And but I'd still like to know historically, what is this number and what can it be or not be, right? On the maximum shift.
Well, I can probably tell you that if it stayed the same for as long as anyone can remember, I would bet dimes to dollars that's the maximum number.
Right. But
I mean, they do provide a range in the document. What the percentage would look like if you increase the shift from 1.275 to 1.285, 1.3, and so forth. So they do kind of provide that overview of what the change would be. So just looking at commercial properties, right now, the proposed shift, it's a reduction in $85 on average. Whereas if we were to, increase the shift to 1.3, it's an increase in $347
Right.
for commercial properties. So I think that's why it's almost
Stayed steady.
yeah, the same as possible. Yeah, commercial and industrial properties.
Yeah,
All right,
It
that
works
makes
here.
sense.
right, so,
And to Danelle's point, every town is different, and
right.
it's almost impossible to do a comparison
Yeah,
without
'cause you
knowing
got
the
your-
exact
yeah.
numbers.
And you got your shift, you have your, what's your potential commercial, what's your prudential residential, backs you into a number, that works well for your town.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
All right, well, so I think that unless anybody's in opposition, Patrick, we need to vote on what this letter says, or do we just agree and have you go forward, or how do we do this?
I think in past years we've taken a vote, usually a vote to support, or either a vote to support or vote to deny the proposed shift. So I mean, it took a vote of a motion to support keeping the shift at 1.275. That might be consistent with
All right.
previous years.
Someone wants to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to support the shift of 1.275.
In a second? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, good. I think it makes sense.
I'll forward the letter out to everybody. I'm just going to write it momentarily and just consistent with previous years' wording. But if everyone is interested, I could add something in there about, it would be interesting to hear a little bit of explanation on the 1.275 percentage.
Yeah, I might also add in that, I think when we write, just as we've done in previous years, as opposed to saying that only, it might be nice just to throw in the fact that given our commercial to residential ratio, here's why we think it makes sense, not just because we're just going along with the rubber stamp. It doesn't have to be more than a sentence or two, but just saying, it makes sense to try to keep the commercial base as close to where it is or less in an effort to increase, our commercial base. Because again, anything else just sounds like we're just going along. We're not even really thinking about it.
No, that's. I can definitely add something to that point for sure. I mean, that makes sense. That's why we'd want to keep that shift as close to the same as possible.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else to go over? I saw something on the agenda, but I don't know if we have the right personnel here to deal with that.
This one is just, I guess, a brief. I spoke to Kevin and John about this via email for the working group on the business forum. We have a date change to March 28th. I think the original proposal was like March 7th or something like that. It wasn't the country club wasn't available at that time, so the 28th was the best possible date after that.
And that's after Danelle's thing?
Should be.
Friends of St. Patrick?
Yeah, it's after St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, no, I was
that's true.
on the Friday before, which is like, what, the 15th this year or something?
I think something like that. I think St. Patrick's Day is on Monday. Sunday.
All right, well, that works.
All right. Yeah, that's it. Other than I just want to confirm the date with you, but work to get a advertisement out. Try to get the word about that sooner before the end of the calendar year, and then eventually kind of go in the same process that we did last year for getting people to make their confirmation and joining. Being at the
Perfect.
meeting. Yep.
Sounds great.
Cool.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
We just
All
take
right,
that
all
on
in
the roll
favor?
call.
Aye.
We have to roll call that?
Usually you had to do that for a Zoom meeting.
John Shelby makes a motion to adjourn.
Right.
Ryan Connor second.
right. Kevin,
Aye.
John,
I made the motion.
that's right.
You still vote on
Danell,
the motion.
Oh, I still gotta vote?
yeah.
Oh, aye. Never
No.
knew that. I always thought if you make the motion and you second it, those are the two people that voted in favor. I never knew that.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I guess you could not vote on your own motion if you really wanted to. But
Yeah, all right.
Yes, you can.
And I'm gonna go aye as well, so I think we're good.
all right,
Aye is an aye. Yep, we're good.
thanks everybody.